Dorian is quickly becoming a serious threat to the Florida coastline. It is a serious threat, and it is strengthening. I'm Mike Naso from the YouTube IPR Tropical Video Update page with the latest on Hurricane Dorian. It moved right over St. Thomas earlier and just to the west, and it caused 100-mile-an-hour winds, very dangerous seas, and quite a fierce battering. It is now an 80-mile-an-hour hurricane moving northwest, expected to bend back west over the next 2 or 3 days, and it is forecast to be a major Category 3 hurricane upon landfall on the Florida East Coast. So this is a serious Labor Day threat. Labor Day weekend, by the way, for Florida. The beachgoers, guys traveling, I'm sorry, it's out the window. The real question is, where will Dorian strike and how strong will he be when he gets there? Here's the latest on Hurricane Dorian as of 5 p.m. It was at 18.8 north, 65.5 west. Winds were up to 80 miles an hour with higher gusts, as we just saw in St. Thomas this afternoon. It's moving northwest at about 12 or 13 miles per hour. The pressure's 997. That's rather high for a hurricane. The pressure really hasn't been dropping, which is good news, but the winds went up and it's clearly a strengthening hurricane. We do have a hurricane warning in effect for Vieques, Culebra, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands, obviously, right where the eye of Dorian is passing by, and a hurricane watch and tropical storm warning remain in effect for the island of Puerto Rico. Now, the forecast from the Hurricane Center is like this. Later tonight, moving northwest, tomorrow moving northwest, strengthening into a Category 2 hurricane, and then by Friday, as the high pressure to the north builds back in, Dorian should make that left-hand turn towards the northern Bahamas and the Florida coastline and make landfall in Florida sometime Sunday or Monday, right around Labor Day, as right now predicted a Category 3 hurricane. Of course, a 3, 4, and 5, those are major hurricanes. The last time a Category 3 hit the east coast of Florida, I believe, was Hurricane Jeanne back 15 years ago in 2004. So this is a serious threat. Here was the model guidance last night. You can see a lot of them took it more northwest towards Georgia or extreme northeastern Florida. Look where they are now as of the 12 and 18Z runs back to the west. And that is a very disturbing trend now that this system is going to just jaunt right west and possibly even end up in the Gulf of Mexico in the longer term. And that is just bad news. Obviously, we had a Category 5 Hurricane Michael devastate areas of the Panhandle last year. They do not need an impact from another hurricane, especially a strong one like Dorian is expected to become. So this is serious stuff. Here's the 12Z GFS ensembles, which are starting to almost take it further south than the official forecast, more towards South Florida, Southeast Florida. So that's going to be a situation we got to watch. And the European, this is the 12Z ensembles. You can see they just are all over Florida, just getting pounded there with Hurricane Dorian on multiple runs of the European ensembles, and just not a good situation at all. You can see some of them continue it even further west towards the North Gulf Coast later in the period. There are a couple out here, but most of them are right over the state of Florida by the time Monday and Tuesday rolls around. So now is the time to start doing the preparation, and believe me, I've heard people are already stocking up on the battery, the plywood, the sheet metal, the flashlights, the bottled water. Make sure your prescriptions are refilled. Make sure you have a little bit of money, because ATMs could go down. Make sure your cars are gassed up and ready to go when that order will come, which it looks like it probably will soon. This is the H-Worth model, and this one shows Hurricane Dorian becoming a 140-mile-an-hour hurricane and crossing Florida. You can see right there it takes it right into the coast and then back out off Tampa and Sarasota by the time, say, 120, 140 hours rolls around. That would be just a very nasty, devastating hit. Hopefully that won't pan out, but that is one of our computer models. And you know we got to look at all the variables here. Here's another look at the visible satellite of Hurricane Dorian, the eye right there past St. Thomas. You can see the thunderstorms bubbling right around it. Not extremely favorable, still a little flat there on the western side, but it is fanning out, especially to the north, venting itself, strengthening. It looks a heck of a lot more like a hurricane than it did 2 days ago when we were wondering if it would even survive. Unfortunately, it looks like it will. Check out the San Juan radar. There's St. Thomas right there, still getting battered. A fierce battering from the right side of Hurricane Dorian, and the eye closing off there. That does make me a little bit apprehensive that we could see some further intensification tonight. And even though it might look like it's moving more west, that motion is off towards the northwest in the general direction of the Turks, Caicos, and Bahamas over the next 2 days. As I mentioned last night, water temperature is not a problem. They only get warmer as you get closer to the Bahamas. Wind shear last night over the top of it was still kind of cutting into it. You can see now it is much more favorable when you get these blues and light greens. This is a sign of lowering wind shear, and this area here in the Bahamas should be very favorable. In fact, we could have a situation with the high pressure to the north to where Dorian has good ventilation in all directions, which is why it's forecast to strengthen into such a powerful storm. So that is a problem here. So the final analysis from the Hurricane Center on Hurricane Dorian: dangerous winds to continue in the Virgin Islands, Culebra, Vieques, and portions of Puerto Rico the next couple of hours, and heavy rain in the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico could cause that flash flooding. The risk of dangerous storm surge and hurricane force winds later this week and the weekend continues to increase in the central and northwest Bahamas and along the Florida East Coast, although it's too soon to determine where those hazards will occur. Residents in these areas should ensure they have their hurricane plan in place and don't focus on the exact forecast track of the center because this track could shift back and forth over the next couple of days. And number 3, heavy rains are expected to occur over portions of the Bahamas, Florida, and elsewhere into the southeast U.S. later this weekend and into early next week. That's your Labor Day beach forecast there in the southeast U.S. So there ain't going to be no sunny skies this Labor Day in Florida, no matter where Dorian ends up going. So, again, just a very dangerous hurricane. It looks like it's going to be impacting areas of the southeast U.S., particularly Florida, over the next, say, 48, 72 hours. We'll be able to get a little bit more in-depth on where Dorian will head. So stay tuned. I'll be back with frequent updates as dangerous Hurricane Dorian takes aim at the Bahamas and Florida over the next couple of days.